Welcome everybody to the channel. It is General Zod here from the Fandom Zone, and tonight's a special night because I never stream on Monday, but I got some good friends and some fellow colleagues, and the moderating pumpkin here, and we're going to demonstrate here in 2020. We want to be an example, trendsetters, maybe a little wacky, and demonstrate the idea of having a debate without having to go and name call. And well, you guys know, if you're on Twitter, be a complete and total idiot. So tonight, me and my good buddy, Mr. Shuan Stackhouse, here with the ever haunting and scary moderating pumpkin, Mr. PB. We're going to hash out uh, uh, some political views we have. We're going to talk about them, give you guys all the facts, and talk about this very toxic and very ridiculous environment surrounding Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Sean, you were the one who messaged me about this, so thank you, Sean. Introduce yourself and then tell us why you're here tonight.
Yeah, I'm Shuan Stackhouse. I have a channel called Shuan Stackhouse Reacts. You're welcome to come over anytime. And, I messaged you because I know that we're on different sides of this this whole political spectrum that's going on right now, but people are just being ridiculous to each other. You can disagree politically, especially right now with this like pandemic going on. We have really more important things to really worry about than who said what and what have you when it comes to politics. And
right,
people,
like the Snyder Cut.
right.
That's a pandemic within itself.
yeah the Snyder Cut.
But yeah, I totally agree with you. And and I think that a lot of things get sidetracked. A lot of facts get overlooked. And quite honestly, the whole political structuring has become kind of a joke and a big dog and pony show. I don't know about you, Sean, and maybe I'm dating us. Maybe I'm dating everyone here on the panel, but I'm sure we all remember a time where debates, you used to get the stances of each person.
Mm-hmm.
They used to lay out what they were going to do, what their plans were. Maybe not the most exciting thing to watch, but especially us being older now and voting, we could get a good stance of where each person stands.
Right.
Now it's become name calling and stupid catchphrases. I mean, today Kamala Harris got asked a question and said, "I like rap music." What the fuck does that have to do with the question the lady asked? I don't know. She's cool. She's trendy. I mean, it's not just that. It's not just the Democratic side that does it. It's both sides. It's like, that's not an answer.
No.
I like trees.
Right, exactly. I mean, I watched the first presidential debate, and then I watched highlights of the second one, because after that first one, I was like, holy crap, this was such a train wreck. I mean, between Donald Trump, just being very aggressive and interrupting, and Joe Biden just kind of avoiding and giving non-answers to some things, and Trump did that too, because, look, I get it. That's politics. If somebody asks you a question that you don't want to answer, you're gonna stick and move. I get it. And, but then again, Chris Wallace was not a very good moderator. You need a moderator that, when somebody tries to dodge and dance around your question, you need somebody to say, excuse me, Mr. President, or, Mr. whoever or Mrs. whoever, you didn't answer the question. Now I will repeat myself, blah, 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 blah. But we don't have anybody like that, and
No.
if if any country would be able to have, look, the media was originally created to keep politicians honest, right? So it's their job to hold their feet to the fire. And so I see no problem with a moderator being like, look, you need to answer this freaking question right now, before I get up there and just backhand the crap out of you.
Wow, moderating. But Shuan Stackhouse moderating might actually be pretty interesting. I gotta say,
actually, I have it for Sam Jackson. He needs to be the moderator of everything.
Motherfucker, answer the question.
Yes.
Like Sean, and this is great because right off the bat, right? Just so people know, because General Zod is a fair dictator. I would like to say, like, we both know we're on opposite ends of the spectrum. We were talking earlier, but you've said some things, and technically on the side of the argument, you're on the other side of it, but yet you've said things so far that I 110% agree with you on.
Sure.
Especially with that first debate, and me and PB, that was one of our issues that we had, and even said a problem that Trump had was that he got baited in that first debate.
Oh yeah.
And that's a good strategy for the other side, because get him to yell, get him to
the first debate was like the Eagles playing the Bengals earlier this season. It ended with a punt, and it was a tie, and everybody lost.
Yeah. Like a good, well, I mean, one of, I think, Trump's shining moments from the first debate was when he kept asking Joe, he's like, or I think Chris Wallace asked Joe Biden if he was going to pack the court. And, Donald Trump was like, who do you have, Joe? Answer the question. But, because, I mean, I think everybody knows if Biden were to get the nominee or what have you, or have the option to appoint the judge, he would definitely try to pack the court. I think that is clear. However, I don't think Trump forcing in this nominee, I think it's very hypocritical for the Republicans, because when Obama tried to do it, the Republicans were like, no, we can't have this. We can't have this before the election. And yet the Republicans are trying to do it now. So, I mean, both sides are full of guilt. And, we as the American people, we deserve better than what these two parties represent.
And I mean, to be fair, we've had also, though, a lot of Republicans on on the other side as well work against the president. And look, here's the thing: you might not like Trump or agree with everything. I might not always agree with everything, but when you have a president, I always felt, and everyone who doesn't know or is new on my channel, by the way, welcome, Cobra Viper. I agree with your comment there. But when you have a president, whether or not you like him, you still have to have respect for his authority and the office. When Obama was in, he wasn't my pick, but I didn't go out and make a big deal and go on Twitter and say, fuck Obama and his laws and I hate him. You know what I said? I just said, well,
that's true. That's true. But on the other side, you had like the birthers, and Trump was like the king of all birthers. Trump was like saying, let's see your birth certificate. Let's see it. Show it. So, I mean, yeah. Obama had his fair share of backlash as well. But I agree with you. I think that, whoever is president, there is a certain amount of respect that you should have for the office of the president, and but then again, the politicians get their their rights and their power from the consent of the governed. So as much as we should respect the offices of the president, the politicians need to learn that we, the people, need to be respected more, way more than we've been respected in, God, maybe the past 2 decades or so. You know,
So PB, what do you think of that? As far as Sean says, do you feel like in the past 2 decades we haven't been very well respected? Because I do tend to agree with that statement. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, it does seem like a lot of what we want. It's like movie companies. They give us about 10% in film of what we want, and the rest of the 90% of it is garbage.
yeah.
Yeah, the biggest problem with politicians is that it has become a full-time job
Yes.
instead of being the part-time job that it used to be.
Yes, that is absolutely true. I mean, we need like severe term limits. Also, I would also say that we need an age limit on the president. Because I mean, both of these guys who are running right now, are
What, 77 and 74?
Yeah, and and I'm not saying that they're not qualified to do the job because of their age, but what I am saying is that with like younger people, look, you can run for president at 35, right? How many young presidents have we have? I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of JFK and Obama. Like late 30s and 40s. So I think with the younger the president, the better and more different the different ideas that are going to come in. And I think that is also true with Congress. If we constantly have, and nothing against the baby boomer generation, nothing against them at all, but if we constantly have baby boomers in power, nothing is going to change.
Yeah, it's the old dogmatic way of seeing and thinking about everything. But I mean, at the same token, even the newer way, or the way that they're trying to go, especially on the Democratic side, which is more bordering a lot more liberal than it is Democratic. Like, Sean, to be honest with you, you're a dying breed. You're one of those people like very much the old school Democrat by the way you talk, because you're very, you can see both ends of the aisles, and
Sure.
basically people like you don't exist anymore. Like,
Right.
it's
Well,
either
No, he
liberal
doesn't.
or then a moderate.
Right. He sounds like what I would call a JFK Democrat.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I am a registered Democrat. I voted for Clinton in his second term for the very first time that I voted. And then every other time I voted since then has been Republican. I voted for Trump in 2016 because I thought Trump, I wanted somebody that was going to shake up the establishment. I wanted somebody that was not a career politician. So yeah. And I mean, I think Reagan was a great president, and of course Reagan was originally a Democrat. So I have no problem voting for a Republican. I have no problem voting for a Democrat. I think it just all comes down to who they are and what their message is.
And see, now that's the interesting thing. So, I mean, let's get to the nuts and bolts, because you, me, PB, everyone, if we're not bombarded by the Snyder Cut on our feed, then we've got one other thing that dominates the topic, which was this debate. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to take the side of that Trump completely and totally had this debate in the bag. And if you look at this debate versus the first one, he was very much like he took notes or maybe watched our channel. So, if you're watching this, share, like, tweet, retweet, all that good stuff. But
Oh,
it
trust me, if
was
he was
like
watching, he'd be tweeting.
if it was as if from the first one he realized he got baited. And I gotta say, well, I watched it, PB watched it, and I didn't see him really get as argumentative or try to dominate the conversation as he normally does. Would you agree with that statement?
I would, and I think so much happened from the time of the first debate to the second debate. I mean, like, he totally like went for all of the bait, in the first debate. Then, he gets the coronavirus, and he's in the White House, and all of a sudden he's airlifted to Walter Reed, and blah blah blah. And I'm happy. I'm happy that he has made a recovery. I don't care who the president is. I don't want to see anything happen to them, while in office. I think that would be a national tragedy. And anybody who thinks different than that, you're not a patriot. You're not a patriot at all. I don't, no matter who you voted for, and no matter what side you're on, if you wish ill will to the president of the United States and you call yourself a patriot, you're kidding yourself.
That, you know what? I 100% agree, because you had, and now this is all of our worlds, because all of us here also deal with the wacky ass left side and the entertainment on this one, but you literally had celebrities and stars come out and say some horrible things about the president, after saying that after he had gotten corona, you had people saying, I hope he died, and a bunch of other stuff. And to me, that was it was really distressing that it's kind of gotten to this, to where people are literally wishing death on a sitting president. Like, that's just something we hadn't had, since we were growing up. It was just like, I've never had encountered so much. Maybe it's because of the internet, and a lot more of these people that have a voice to voice their inappropriate and stupid opinions.
Well, and clearly, there were many people who wished ill will towards Barack Obama. You can bet your entire life savings on that, just because of the fact that he was the first Black American president. People didn't like it because his name was funny, and he wasn't white. He wasn't the status quo. So you had a lot there were a lot of Americans, from certain regions in America that were so much against him. And I didn't vote for Obama, obviously. But I don't, looking back on his presidency, I don't think he was a horrible president. I think he honestly tried. I think every president that we've had, since I can remember, Reagan, Clinton, everybody, I think they've honestly tried. But yeah,
I definitely agree. And Stone Cold Jeremy was right. They were even saying defund or even cancel Walter Reed Hospital, which is just,
I know.
That is just so disgusting, man. And this is the thing. This is the reason why I feel like I can't have discussions with these people on Twitter or Facebook or anything else like that, because then you lay out facts and points and things like that, and no one takes the time to listen to them. Like, so far tonight, I have agreed with what you've said about the debating style, especially in the first debate and things like that. And what would I call it, a win on either side? No, I call it a draw, or maybe you might see it as a win. But either way, we've been able to come to a consensus that it was totally mishandled, and you yourself recognize that the moderators weren't weren't tough enough. But see, isn't this the problem we have with the liberal media in general, is that they don't want, they're so entwined with the politics.
Oh yeah.
They're so entwined, and we've seen it in Hollywood too. They're so entwined with the politics that I don't think they're capable of judging these things fairly or accurately. And you can pick any moderator. You can go Fox, MSNBC, any of them. None of them seem to be willing to give either side a just take their bias out of it and moderate.
What we need is like your old school anchors, back in the day, that they didn't give you opinions, back in like the 70s, from what I've read, because I wasn't alive to know this, but they reported the facts. They did not report their opinions. It was not an op-ed piece, and and that's what media is now. You don't have your old school like Cronkite, where it was just the facts. There's always a slant on every news report that you read, because you can read the same report on multiple different websites that lean any which direction, and you're gonna get like a different assessment of how they're reporting. So yeah, and I don't think there's many people in America that really trust the media anymore. I think more and more people are realizing that they're in the bag for one party or the other.
And let us highlight something Trump did expose, and I think it's very important, because you said you wanted someone to shake up the establishment.
Yeah,
and I would argue that he did, because look at what the CIA did. Look at what how the media's bias has really been brought to the surface. Sean, could you remember a president who has openly exposed these guys, these clowns, so much as he has? Sometimes purposely irritating them, but at any rate, he has shown the establishment for what it is. I mean, let's take this Russia thing. I notice we don't hear nothing about it. You want to know why we don't hear anything about it? Because it's not true. They only run with things that they think they can spin forever and knock people down with. But now there's been no solid evidence, no case, and it's essentially just disappeared. I mean, am I wrong? Or the facts seem to be no one's pursued this anymore. Everyone involved has been called out for lying or various other things. That clown Comey, who's made a book tour, and possibly, I don't know why he isn't arrested still, but you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, look at it this way, man. I'm still waiting for, all of the people that were crying when Bush was still in office, Bush Jr., after he was out of office, he needed to be tried for war crimes. I'm still waiting for that whole trial to happen, because, yeah. If you listen to the media, as soon as he left office, he was going to be put in handcuffs, taken away, and he was going to be on trial for war crimes. I'm still waiting for Hillary Clinton to go to jail because of the Benghazi situation. According to the right-wing media, that was going to happen. These things didn't happen. And it's just the media that spins it one way or the other. It's whatever they can get, like the popular headlines, the clicks, and all of the ad revenue and attention from. It's media has become very clickbait. Much like certain YouTube channels, they
yeah,
they give you
we know about that.
Yeah, they give you like an interesting thumbnail with a very intriguing title. Then you get in there and it's like something else, and you're like, "What the hell, man?"
I know Pop Culture PB does that all the time. He tricks me every time I watch one of his videos. No, PB had that actually on a thumbnail.
I mean, his avatar is kind of
What the hell? I would never trick you with a thumbnail.
Of course not.
PB, what do you think? Do you think that this Russian thing will ever bear any fruit? And does Sean have a point that we've seen other scandals and it's just the nature of what happens, and we're not going to see anyone arrested for this?
Oh my God. How the fuck am I supposed to answer that question when my internet speed is so goddamn slow that I only heard every third fucking word?
I was saying with the
holy
with
fuck.
the whole...
I was like, okay, at the beginning of the sentence, I could hear what you were saying, and then it was cutting out a little more, and then it was cutting out a little more, and I was like, fucking A, I have no idea what the question is. Could you repeat it, and hopefully I can try again?
So with the whole Russian thing, right, that came out, supposedly it was a big bombshell, and more we found out it was looking like a crock of shit. Do you think anyone will be tried for that? And do you think that there's any merit to Trump colluding with the Russians and all this nonsense, or was it just something that other parties bring out that had no base, no merit?
Oh. Wait, shenanigans against who?
Trump,
this
the Russian
is terrible,
collusion.
man. I'm sorry. Oh, more Russian collusion? Are we talking about the most recent round of Russian disinformation on a certain laptop?
I'm gonna get into that. I mean the Trump one, which is kind of...
Are we talking about the original Russian collusion?
Yeah, know, where like they say Trump is in Putin's pocket, all of that stuff.
Oh, I have a hard time believing that Trump would be in Putin's pocket when it was the previous administration that was talking to Putin's right-hand man, telling him that he would have more flexibility after he gets reelected. So the evidence that I've seen on camera with the hot mic is a little contrary to what the mainstream media would lead you to believe of which political party is more in bed with the Russians. Because I'm not going to sit here and say that maybe there is a random frickin' congressman or senator or somebody out there, maybe, I don't know, a New York mayor. I don't fucking know. He's worth millions and millions, maybe even billions of dollars that's connected to the Russians. I don't know, but I'm pretty damn sure Donald Trump is not directly connected to Putin or his power structure, that he would be setting stuff up in America to enrich Russia, because he's been more strict on Russia when it comes to sanctions than anybody since Ronald Reagan. Does that answer your question?
Oh, absolutely. This is definitely
okay,
I just love talking about this stuff. So yeah, I tend to agree. Sean, what do you think?
Well, I have a general distrust of all political figures. And now that Trump is technically a politician, running for his second term, I don't really have much trust for him either. So in my mind, in a world where we have something called democratic socialists in power in our Senate, which that doesn't even make sense. How can you be democratic and a socialist at the same time? That they cancel each other out, right? I
used to think that, socialism and democracy are vastly different.
Yeah, and also, I'm so tired of the of the left pushing democracy. Have they forgotten that we're a republic? We're not a democratic country. I mean, if we were
Yes.
100% democratic, things would become so much different than they are. That's why we are a republic.
That is a great point, because I don't even think they realize their own terminology, or they don't use the political terms until it suits the needs of the party. Then you hear the words democracy and freedom and things come out, but it's only when they're trying to push something, or push an idea. And now, speaking of scandals and things like that, of course, we got to bring up the Joe Biden thing. Sean, you have to side with me on this, man. Like the laptop, Biden comes out and said the Russians, and I mean, come on, this has got to be by far one of the stupidest statements I woke up to on my Twitter. And I've seen a lot of fucking stupid things these past couple of months.
I mean, it's 2020, dude. I mean, it's just going to be worse with each passing month. But yeah, I mean, I saw that and I was like, really? Okay. Again, like I said, I have a general distrust for any politician these days, man. I mean, the way I look at it is, for about the past 20 years, we've not really been given a choice. I thought in 2016, we were finally not going to have to choose between the lesser of the two evils. I thought that when, Trump ran on his original platform, I was like, man, this guy is going to come in. He's going to drain the swamp, like he says, and, he's going to institute positive change. But, unfortunately, in my opinion, the swamp that he was supposed to drain seems to have gotten even deeper and murkier. I mean, he said he was going to have the most transparent administration in the history of America. I'm still waiting for that. And I understand, look, when you are running for president, everybody makes all of these promises that they're not able to keep, because once they get into office and they're read into everything, like national security wise, I understand while they're running, they're read into certain limited things. But once they actually get into the office of the president and they get the full scope of everything, they're not able to keep all of their promises because of this, that, or the other. But I don't know, man. I don't know.
So to your point, let's bring up some of that, because I feel like, just me personally, I have seen changes. I mean,
there have been changes. I don't disagree. He's not. I mean, he has made some positive changes. I don't agree with a lot of what he does, but I mean, I can't say that he's been horrible on everything.
Like, for instance, right? Look at these big companies that were just about ready to leave the U.S., right? And take their business with them. I think both you and me can agree that had we had someone else in office, you would see a lot more people out of work, especially, I do a factory job. So, logistically, we have always relied on the factory industry and things like that, especially towns that are surrounded by factories, lumber mills, whatever, you know what I mean. And a lot of these places were ready to pack up and leave and take their business to foreign countries and outsource jobs.
Yeah.
And I think that is one huge accomplishment, and it does show in the numbers. Not to mention too, Sean, I notice no one ever talks about the economy pre-corona. Like, now you can make a case for it because obviously things had to shut down.
All of his gains, everything that he worked for the economy is gone now because of corona. And yeah, now the economy that he had, the economy he was given was not horrible. You know, it was on the upswing. Now he added a lot to it. It's not what he says, like it's not the greatest economy in the history of America. That is not a fact. You know, I mean, I would refer you to the booming 80s before the crash in 1987 or what have you. You know, things were like gangbusters back then. You know, Ronald Reagan, I mean, best case scenario, man, I wish Ronald Reagan was running right now. I would vote for him so many times. I would commit voter fraud for Ronald Reagan.
But see, I think too, you have a stark difference here because economy-wise, from Reagan's time to what we're in now, everything was different. You know, as things changed throughout, you know, the years, the currency rates, things like that, everything has changed so vastly. I mean, you know, even from when we were kids, you could see movies for like,
oh yeah,
you know, at most $10. Now it's like 11 or $12. We always joke that Terrence, shout out Terrence, spends like $400 seeing movies.
Terrence is always like reviewing like the newest movies. I'm like, my God, what is your
that man? Budget? Please, someone go send him. We need to get him ad revenue because that's a guy who needs ad revenue to pay for those reviews, man. I got like I was on,
like sponsor him, you know, so like, you know, and like send him these movies, you know, like review copies, press copies, you know, so he can like, you know, not have to go out and spend his money, you know, because he makes so much enjoyable content, you know, that people should just send the movies to Terrence.
Oh yeah, he'd be the biggest advocate. He's always like, yeah, I seen this movie, but it was all right, you know. And we always say, even with terrible movies, man, you went to see it? He goes, I see every movie.
Yep. He does. I mean, he sat through the entire season of Batwoman, knowing that it was just crap, and he sat through it because he.
Hey man, I watched all of Batwoman.
So did I, and I watched it for the same reason as Terrence because you know I bleed DC. I love DC Comics, you know, and my heart broke with every episode of Batwoman.
You see, I feel like you're watching it the wrong way, Sean. You got to look at it as the best Sunday night comedy.
That's what he told me. I was like, well, when you put it that way, it does change the viewing. Now,
if you were to look at it like a satire, like kind of like Adam West's 1966 Batman, you know, it was kind of a satire of Batman. Yeah, that might work. I
mean, have you seen the movie The Martian?
No, with Matt Damon.
Yes.
No, I generally try to avoid all things Matt Damon.
Okay, well, the problem that they had with that movie, and I enjoy the movie, I mean, I'm sure that it has issues in it. I didn't go looking for them per se, is that it was meant to be a serious movie of him being stranded on Mars and surviving alone, like how Tom Hanks did in Castaway, but with the Mars setting. But it turned into a comedy with all of the hilarious stuff that was happening. I was like, oh, so I just need to apply this same filter to Batwoman, and then I will be able to enjoy the show, because I can't take that show seriously the same way I take The Flash seriously.
Man, I it's getting to be where I can't even take The Flash seriously. We are The Flash? No, I'm sorry. He is The Flash.
You guys are the supporting cast.
yeah. No, I'm sorry, Iris. Until you have superpowers, which I mean, she had in an episode, but
right
until you until you have something to add, like superpower wise, meta wise, we are not the Flash, sweetheart. I love you, but we are not.
Yeah, that was
But I mean,
that was bad.
Yeah.
and I mean, that's just the thing is that I notice, being that we're on the entertainment subject, I notice too when you're watching this, man, the biggest thing that disappointed me, and we did a show on this. The moderating pumpkin was with me. I literally had 4 articles where these celebrities came out and endorsed Biden, and some of them hurt my soul, man. The Rock,
Yeah, I saw that.
Michael Keaton.
I look, so with Michael Keaton, Michael Keaton comes, I mean, he's of the age to where he was like, I want to say that he was probably like from, because he's from, I believe, Pennsylvania. Okay. He's from because he's 69 years old. So imagine, his parents were, Great Depression era, parents. And so he's probably the old school blue collar Democrat. I think that's probably how he's lived his entire life. And I don't think, he's jumping on like a Hollywood trend. I think it's with Michael Keaton, he seems sincere, unlike, the rest of Hollywood. I don't think it's a fad for him. Now, everybody else.
Which, by the way, too, you had Zack Snyder jump that train too. Fucking douchebag.
Oh, I didn't know that. But see, I'm not surprised because Hollywood generally goes that way. Like I think with most entertainment, see, the term liberal is not a bad word. Liberalism is actually, if you look up the definition, it's actually a very good thing. In fact, the perfect example of liberal is Jesus Christ. Liberal.
Okay. Continue now. I'm intrigued.
Okay. Liberal means giving freely. It means loving. It means accepting, helping. It doesn't mean what they've hijacked the term to mean. The terms are hijacked and redefined like every few generations. Liberalism, like now, now you have liberals and you have the far left, and they're completely different. So liberal, like the actual definition, like what liberal used to mean, I think that would like apply to most rational minded people. But, just like,
me too. That's a bad example.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to consider yourself as a rational minded person, but, words, because of the media, words start to carry a certain stigma with them. Republican is not a bad word, but according to the media, it is. Democrat is not a bad word, but according to certain media, it is. We need to stop letting the media tell us what something means and actually look up definitions and do our own research on these things.
Yeah, but I would argue, though, see, you, me, PB, and anyone else who I've had in the comments, Stone Cold Jeremy, I see you, very active in the chat, and everyone else who's been here, Cobra Viper, Lemon Pie, Geekocidal Tendencies, and everyone else, thank you. I like to give my shout-outs every now and again, but yeah, I think that all of us here have very rational thought. But here's the problem we have, Sean, and the problem with the new set of people coming in and voting and things like that. They don't look at anything up. Everybody takes the media at face value. Yep. I mean, am I wrong for saying that?
Well,
no.
They really do.
I feel like you could take it even more narrow. A lot of people typically pick a channel and that's what they go with. They don't even go and watch all of the channels to see, okay, this is the story. This is what this channel's saying about it. This is what this channel's saying about it. This is what this channel's saying about it. They just go, okay, I've chosen CNN. I'm watching that till the rest of time. I've chosen Fox News. I'm watching that for the rest of the time.
Yeah, and because of that, you have people who see back in the day when he was on the Fox News channel, I used to watch Glenn Beck, mainly because he always said, "Don't take my word for it. Go do your own homework, research it yourself."
Yeah, I remember that.
And I respected that. I didn't always agree with his opinions, but I respected that he said, "Don't take my word for it. Go do your homework." And I have applied that to myself ever since. And I might not be as thorough as I should be on some subjects, but it seems to be that most people these days take a pundit, like a journalist, like whether it's Anderson Cooper or who Laura Ingraham, who took over for Bill O'Reilly, or whoever, and they parrot, or Rachel Maddow, and they parrot back everything they say. They just like spill it out of the mouth, so it's like they're not actually going out there and looking at the issue. They're just like repeating back to you what somebody else has said. So basically, until society stops being spoon fed like talking points, I don't really think we're going to make much progress on this conversation as a complete nation.
Oh no, not at all. I totally agree. And you and me, and talking with you backstage about the corona, we have very two different sides, but the way you laid things out for me, and how you've had someone, and I've had someone sick too, but how you have explained those situations, it does make me see your side of the issue as far as that goes. But one thing I don't agree with, okay, the opening in that debate, when he announced the death toll, right?
Right.
I think that was a very stupid opening because of the fact that is like blaming a president, or even blaming Bush back in the day for Katrina. He didn't cause Katrina. Granted, some of the response could have been better. Yeah, but I don't even really blame Trump on the response of that. There were a lot of things that were a lot of outside factors that were known, that have been said and proven. And if I had to blame anyone, I would blame China for how they handled the whole thing and not told us anything. They essentially not only screwed us over, but the rest of the world.
Well, let's
not releasing any details.
Let's specify.
And no one talked about that.
Let's be specific here. I hold the Chinese government responsible.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't want to get into that. We'll be down about it because they'll be like, Chinese people, are you racist? No, we're not against the Chinese people. The government.
I hold the Chinese government very responsible for this entire thing. There are multiple theories on how this virus came to be. And, we don't know which is true because we don't know who we can believe. All we do know is that it originated in China, and unfortunately, they were not very quick on the draw to let the world know that, oh crap, we've released this horrible thing in our country, and this could be potentially able to spread throughout the world because of massive, world travelers. But like you said about Bush, you can't blame him for Katrina, but you can hold him accountable for his lack of action or his late action. And you can't blame Trump. You can't blame any world leader necessarily specifically for the virus. Okay. It happened. But you can hold the war, like certain leaders responsible on how quickly they reacted, and what they've done while they've had the information. And my biggest beef with Trump, and I think this is a lot of people's current beef with Trump, is the fact that he knew as early as like November that this was an issue. And, we started getting our first cases back in January. But we, the American people, unless you were actually reading newspapers or watching the news, because before this was announced on March 13th, which was Friday the 13th, by the way, freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Unless you were actually like tuning into the news every now and then, you had no idea. Like a couple of months before this was announced, I just happened to tune into NBC Nightly News, because there was nothing on, and I just saw the segment of something called the coronavirus, and it was overseas, and of course, the American mindset at the time was, oh well, this is horrible, but this isn't affecting us, so I'm going to change the channel. So what I will do is, in my opinion, I hold Donald Trump responsible for the fact that he could have, look, the virus would have come here and it would have done what it was going to do regardless, but he could have prepared the frontline workers months before they did. He could have supplied, the PPE, or, the federal government could have started the gears turning much faster than they did. And that is my biggest beef with Trump, to be completely honest. But I don't blame him for the virus, because he didn't create the virus.
Which all are valid points, but I would take the opposite stance on this. I think, and I'm just guesstimating from his position, no matter what he would have done, right? If you start even making small movements, right? Or he even started doing stuff, and you could say you could do it low key or whatever, but with the way our society is, with people taking pictures and things like that, okay? Yeah. If he started making moves before definite confirmation here, or even preempting things, sure, I think that would have sent a message and got people in the frenzy. Because look, it's that old mentality. Like, then you create in the mind hysteria, and I think very in his own Trump way, which I don't think he worded everything correctly, but I do see what the stance he was trying to take was that, look, making all of these precautions then puts people on high alert, and then you got people just freaking out. Like, Sean, I went to the store the other day, right? And there were these kids, and I told this story before with PB on here, but I went to this Quick Trip, and there were these two young girls just coming out of school. And around here, certain stores, it's not mandatory to wear a mask. Mm-hmm. You can if you want to, but you don't necessarily have to. And, if someone comes in without a mask, I don't freak out about it. But this person, who's a mother, she had her kid, these two young girls, I'd say maybe junior high, not even high school yet. They come in riding on their bikes or whatever. They don't have a mask. And this lady starts flipping out. And keep in mind, these are kids. The kids are going to be kids. They're going to wear it in school and then take it off because they've been wearing it all day.
Right.
But she starts yelling. She starts yelling at these kids and talking about how they're spreading the infection and stuff like that. And I actually had to say something to this lady, like, you're a parent. You should be ashamed of yourself sitting here berating these kids. Should they have worn a mask? Maybe, but do you need to sit here and, first off, hold me up because I was getting a monster and, a 10-hour work shift, man. I was already not in the mood. So, and Stone Cold Jeremy put it the best, because this is my philosophy. A person is smart, but people are dumb, scared animals. And that's when, like you said, with the herd mentality. If you start making moves, people automatically make the jump to the worst case scenario. So I do understand his point of view. Like, yeah, I don't want to come out, especially when it's not really hitting majorly here, and then create this panic and then nothing happens, because then the media runs with that.
The thing is, and I agree with you there. You know, you don't want to start making big moves and then just kind of rattle people. But I think, look, he was notified of what happened, you know, back in like late November. Okay. So if you don't want to make moves then, you know, if you don't want to make actual moves, that's fine. But at least come up with a plan, because he completely dissolved the pandemic response team, you know, like in his first couple of years. So there was no pandemic response team. So what he should have done is he should have used that time to come up with a strategic plan on what they were going to try to do. And then in January, when the first case was actually confirmed here, then he should have started making moves at that point in time. And all I'm saying is we should have been notified well before March 13th, in my opinion. You know, if you didn't want to tell us like right when the first person was diagnosed, that like they came in from Wuhan, you know, then they saw the WHO information, they were feeling sick, so they went to the hospital, and they're like, yeah, you have this. If you didn't want to like tell people then, that's fine, but start making moves at that point in time, small moves, and then maybe let us know in early February, because in early February is when things started to, historically looking back, things started to really start going bad around the world. It was really starting to spread. So, you know, and the moves that I'm talking about, you know, start just, you know, sending out additional PPE equipment to hospitals and first responders and things like that, you know, because they're the ones that have been risking their lives, you know, for 10 months now, trying to save the lives of everyone that is unfortunately afflicted with this. And, you know, it's just unfortunate. And, you know, and I wouldn't have wanted to be Trump having to deal with this. You know, I mean, God, this is probably one of the worst nightmare scenarios that any president could ever possibly fathom. You know,
I mean, yeah, I mean, because we've had presidents deal with war, deal with that, deal with Katrina. PB, you seem like you want to say something.
I got a good question. Yeah, I have a good question for the two of you, because I assume that Zod, you believe that Trump has handled it rather well, and Sean believes that he hasn't handled it as well as he could has. Yes?
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so after the election, who would be able to handle it better? Someone who is getting reelected and has all of their stuff in place, all of their people already know what they're doing, or an incoming administration who would have to reset up all of those things?
That's a great question. But I have a question for you. Do the people in the position that are in power right now really know what they're doing? Because I ask that because the White House has had 2 outbreaks of the coronavirus, with Donald Trump and now with Mike Pence's closest advisors. People were dropping like flies from the White House, you know, shortly after Trump went into the hospital and was diagnosed. So if they can't control the coronavirus in the White House, what makes us think that they're going to be capable of controlling it within the next 4 years, when just yesterday, I think it was like I forget his position, but he was from the White House, said that, we're not going to even try to control it. We're not going to try to control this virus. We're just going to look at the vaccine. And, you couldn't absolutely, many doctors say you can control the spread of these things by, using your brain, social distance, wash your hands, wear a mask, when you're out in public, masks aren't 100%. They aren't, but there is evidence that they do help. So, I mean, just if you were just logical and use your freaking brain, yeah, I think there are ways that we could probably, you can't stop the spread completely, but you could minimize it a little bit, and even if you minimized it by 20%, that would be such a big deal. But
to my knowledge, just to counterpoint this, to my knowledge, the corona has a lot of symptoms of the flu. Yes, everybody agree it's flu-like in nature.
It has some, but it affects your respiratory system mostly. It's inflammation, and that's why, like the really advanced cases, they're put on ventilators because their lungs and their bronchial tubes are just completely full of inflammation, and they can't get air through.
So kind of a hybrid pneumonia, we would say, because pneumonia essentially works the same way. And
it's like pneumonia on like steroids, honestly.
Yeah. So I mean,
it's Barry Bonds level pneumonia.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, okay, if we look at any virus, any type of a plague or anything that has spread, the simple truth is that I think the mentality is more of, instead of trying to contain it, just let it naturally run its course. I mean, if you look at the stats, and I mean, I feel like the stats are padded a lot by the media,
sure,
and the spikes are suspect, and I think we can agree on that. I think it feeds into that hype machine, but a lot of the cases, the severity is dying down on what's happening to people. People are getting over it a lot more now. And I think that naturally, like any other disease, your body or anyone else's body will start to build immunities and tolerances to it, because that's just the way nature works. You can go back into history with any major
that's
illness.
What they were trying. I think that's what they were originally trying or contemplating. They were trying maybe to think about the herd immunization, to where you just expose enough people to it, and the body eventually starts to build up a natural resistance against it. But I think the only difference here is that this is very, very infectious. It's more infectious than pneumonia and the flu. I mean, it will spread like crazy. And
yeah, but I would argue it's not as deadly.
I don't know if it's more infectious. It might be just slightly more deadly.
Well, see, I would argue against the deadly, because if you look at
the survival rate is actually very, very good.
Exactly. If you look at how many people survived this, and then you compare that to even just the swine flu, which is the only point of reference I have for, a major outbreak. So I'm going to use that for my comparison point. But if you compare those two, I would say that the swine flu or any other really bad virus we've had in history has had a greater mortality rate than corona has.
The swine flu had a lesser mortality rate, but it had a higher infectious rate.
And see, that's weird, because I've never met anyone in my life that's had the swine flu, to be completely honest.
I mean, I haven't either. I honestly was just researching it, because like you said, right, we have to, I feel like in order to really gauge for ourselves how deadly is this? I think we should look back in history at the deadlier diseases that we've had, right? The most infectious diseases.
Yeah, well, like
And
plague, smallpox, the Spanish flu, which was the last pandemic we had. Like, I think that was 1918 or something. The only thing about this is that if you have any type of issues with your lungs, your heart, or your kidneys, you could be in trouble, because this tends to affect your heart, your lungs, and your kidneys. So I think the reason this is maybe more infectious is because we have a society of people with pre-existing conditions. Either you're diabetic, you've got kidney issues, you've got heart issues, even blood pressure issues. Apparently, this can affect. So America is a very, very unhealthy country. Okay.
well, it has been for years.
Yeah, and I think the fact that
leave my Taco Bell out of this.
Yeah, I like Taco Bell just as much as you, probably, but this thing seems to want to prey on like all of these pre-existing conditions. So it seems like the healthier a person is, if they get it, many people who get it and they're healthy, they don't really seem to have like a bad reaction to it. Yeah, their chest hurts, and they might not be able to sleep laying down and stuff like that, and they might feel achy and stuff like that. But within maybe 2 or 3 weeks, they're pretty much feeling better. That seems to be the consistent story that I've been hearing. Now, my friend and her 3 children, I'm monitoring their situation because they're all healthy, relatively healthy. So I'm and they're young. The kids are like, the oldest is 18, and I think the youngest is like 8 or 10. So I'm going to be watching them. Be like the daughter today, she was on, she did like an Instagram live stream, and I just happened to be on Instagram at the time, and she looked and acted like she normally does. And I was happy to see that, because, when I heard the news that they were all diagnosed with the virus, it just broke my heart, the entire family. And so she, I asked her how she was doing, and, she said her chest hurts, when she coughs, it hurts. She can't sleep more than like 30 minutes at a time, so that really does suck. But I was very encouraged to see, you can tell by, looking at a person's complexion, sometimes how their eyes look, that somebody is sick. And, for all intents and purposes, she looked pretty good. And I think that was very, very good to see.
And PB, did you want to read that comment by Mr. Stone Cold Jeremy? Because I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying.
Well, I have to disagree. Just because you're
gonna let me read the comment before you disagree with it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Angry pumpkin.
Stone Cold Jeremy says, not to point out the obvious, but if you have pre-existing conditions, and virus like CVD, Spanish flu, what have you, is going to be lethal.
And see, that's what I have to disagree with. There's no guarantee it's going to be lethal. It just means that you might have a harder go at the virus. Now, it could be lethal, sure, but I mean, I think there's probably more Americans that have pre-existing conditions that don't. And luckily the death toll with the numbers that were given seem to be very low considering the number of Americans that are infected.
And yeah, and see that is my thing to harken back to the beginning of our question is I think that if you put another administration into effect, I think that they would feed more into this. And look, Sean, there's something to be said that there are people benefiting off of this corona being out there. And I would say it
Big
would be
mask.
I would say the corporations would be benefiting from this because look at the businesses that have been affected. I personally, and I'm speaking from personal experience, Sean, you know me from doing my streams at my karate school.
Sure.
My school closed down because of this directly.
Yeah,
Absolutely directly because of this.
you can't be in that close contact. It's just too risky right now.
But see, there's a lot of things where I have seen that, in a sense, the bigger corporations are stomping out the little corporations, the little stores, the little shops.
Of course.
They're kind of using this as a way to take out business. And this is another dangerous thing about this, Sean, is that I feel like this has given the corporations a good way to run rimshot on the little guy, and for the Walmarts and the Targets and everybody else to gain a foothold. And it's kind of destroying business model in it itself because Sean, you personally, how many stores and businesses have you seen that have been around for years go out of business because of this?
There have been quite a few, yeah, and they're usually the independent, smaller business, that just can't sustain this because they don't have the workload for one, and they don't have the number of employees, even if they had the workload, and I blame the back and forth in Congress for this because yeah, we had the first stimulus and that was good for a month. It bought some groceries and it paid rent, for a lot of people. But there are a lot of people right now that are still suffering very much because of loss of income. And unfortunately, Congress is still, in the middle of this pandemic, it's business as usual with both sides. They're playing politics. When Trump specifically said, look, I want a deal even bigger than both of you are saying. And we have the money left from the first stimulus bill that has not been spent yet. It's just sitting there. So if you send me this bill right now, I will sign it and I will get the money out there to the people. And I think the other place that he wanted to help initially was maybe the airlines. I don't remember, but specifically he wanted to get another payment out to Americans to help, offset them. But Congress, are as usual, are bickering children.
And can we say that Biden and Harris would be any better in, managing this or financially? Can we say that they would send out this money in a timely fashion? Because I don't believe they would. I think that some shady stuff would happen because that just seems to be the MO in these situations, especially on the Democratic side of things. I've talked about a lot of different organizations, especially within the BLM too, where on the outset it looks like they're an organization helping out, but then you have them funneling money to the heads of the organization, and they're only getting about a third or less.
Sure.
So, the question then becomes, what, where is the money going to go? And you've had Pelosi come out very publicly and say that she's specifically holding this up because she said she won't sign anything with Trump's name on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Pelosi, look, when the speaker was up for re-election, most Democrats didn't want Pelosi. They did. There were like the majority of Democrats were like, anybody but Nancy Pelosi, please, anybody but Nancy Pelosi. And she got the nomination because of clout, dirt, whatever. Because she's another one of the career politicians. So of course she probably cashed in quite a few favors and extorted and blackmailed and all that you can imagine. So and yeah, I agree with Stone Cold Jeremy. The only one holding up the next stimulus package is Pelosi. Yeah, and even CNN is dragging her forward. That is absolutely true, because look, say the Republicans, what did they come to, like 1.9 billion or something like that? I think it was just under, or was it? Yeah, like or was it trillion? I don't remember. It was just under 2. At this point in time, right? Anything is better than nothing. So Pelosi should have said, all right, so we're pretty far apart on 1.8 trillion. Okay, thank you, Lemon Pie. Sounds about right. Yeah, just under 2. So she could have said, and this could have been a great talking point for the Democrats. This could have been a huge win. They could have spun the crap out of this. She could have agreed to the 1.8 trillion, and then she could have had, like her press been all over CNN, MSNBC, all of that. She'd have been like, we wanted like, $3 trillion or whatever it was, but the Republicans would only agree to 1.8 trillion. And because we wanted to, prevent the American citizens from suffering anymore, we agreed to their far less number. And because we felt it was more important to get the aid out to the people than to play politics. And that would have been a slam freaking dunk for the Democrats.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have really a great argument.
But she was too afraid to give any type of win to the Republicans because she thinks that it's going to make her lose her gavel.
Yeah. And this is the thing. This is the thing that mystifies me about this whole thing. Like, I do agree with a lot of points you brought up, Sean, is that like right now anything would help. Like currently, the magical unicorn, is in a situation where she could use the money. And
dude, $500. Send us $500.
I know, like at this point, I think $5. And it's like,
just do something. You were elected to serve the people. Serve us, please.
Yeah, and I mean, it's astonishing. But see, look, we've had a back and forth with the corona, but I think we're both pretty. See, this is interesting because I thought I was gonna really debate with you on a lot of things, but we are pretty even on the stuff that we agree and disagree about.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a lot of great points. So let's get to the most contentious thing. And one of my reasons that I feel like one, Biden is terrible for the job, and 2, I feel like it's got traction but not a lot. But and I've argued with people with this on Twitter. The laptop, man. How do you explain away that I feel like a lot of people are trying to spin this and there's no good way to spin it? Biden came out and said it was the Russians. So maybe it was the Russians. Putin was just lying around and
Boris and Natasha, came to America and they were looking for the moose and oh my God. I don't know, man. I mean, there is so much stupidity on both sides, and I mean, I just shake my head pretty much daily right now. But I think the biggest point that we're going to differ on is that, yeah, I think we can both agree that Joe Biden, really, that's, I mean, is that the best candidate you had to offer? I mean, is that the best of your political party? Okay, fine. But where we differ here is that under the circumstances, I would like to have a president that at least publicly seems to believe in science, or Donald Trump has made up and shot off his mouth so many times, hydroxychloroquine, let's inject some cleaners, and he says he was joking, but I was watching that live. He was like talking back and forth to the doctor. He's like, can we look into this? Is this possible? And he says he was joking, but I mean, come on. He said so many outlandish things, and he refuses to lead it with an example of, responsibility of like, look, he said when he was in the hospital, he's like, I get it. I understand. And as soon as he came out, it was back to business as usual. Oh, coronavirus isn't that bad, and look, whether it is or not, he should be, whatever his personal opinions are, he should be doing what's best for the country, and, lead by example, because that's why we have, I think, so many people that are just like throwing a fit, yeah. And, back to your story of like Quick Trip and that woman who was just like going off on those children. That's none of her business. I mean, if you see somebody without a mask, get away from them as fast as possible if that is something that you're concerned about, but it's not your place to berate anybody for wearing a mask, because there have been many who have gotten in the face of people wearing a mask. As I'm sure there have been people who have yelled at people who aren't wearing a mask. Look, mind your business. If you're worried about it, get the hell away, go into the safety of your car, drive home really fast, and, make sure your house is freaking airtight or something, but yeah, I just, if Donald Trump, didn't try to contradict the scientists, and he seemed to believe in, the whole science, approach, because he's so many things, man. Oh yeah, I see this, going away by Easter. It's going to be like a miracle. It's going to evaporate. And he's saying right now, we're rounding the corner. No, we're not. We're not rounding the corner, Donald. I wish we were. But, and if he would have just been different on like a couple of those key issues, then I would probably still be on board for him. But I under the circumstances, I want somebody who at least seems to want to take the advice of the leading scientific minds in this world, and not try to put your 2 cents on it, because where is your certification, as president? No one is a freaking scientist. They're a politician. And unless you are a doctor and you have a PhD and a degree and whatever, I don't want to hear your freaking opinion. Listen to the experts. That's all.
I mean, I would counter with, I think though that if we look long term, look, this corona thing will go away. And I don't believe the stats, I do think, get inflated quite a bit.
I'm sure.
And you have those idiots too who sit there and gather in public places when they know they're not supposed to. They don't want to follow the guideline, which adds to it. So I can't necessarily say that the administration itself while Trump may come out and say some outlandish things, you can't say that he's not putting these things into place or even taking the science seriously. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes.
Of course we can. Look at his rallies and like the Amy Comey Barrett or whatever her name is, the event that actually was a super spreader. You know, that's where so many people got sick around the time when Trump came down with the coronavirus. No one wears masks. You know, everyone is like on top of each other. There's no social distancing. So in that regard, he may not be saying verbally that he is not taking science seriously, but he is demonstrating by his actions. And that is what people are looking at. People are looking to the president. They're seeing what the president is doing. And if the president is acting like it's no big deal and going around, you know, standing shoulder to shoulder with people without masks, then that's what the general public is going to do, because the general public has herd mentality, like we've said before. And the average human being, you know, no offense to the race that we all are of human beings, but a lot of us are freaking idiots.
Oh, no, I would definitely agree. I would definitely agree with that. You know, I look at it this way because, look, besides this corona thing, I would say that we got to think long term. And can we say that any of the things afterwards that Biden is proposing really make sense? Because from what I've heard, a lot of the shit he says does not make sense himself. And I think that when this starts to die down, which it will, we don't know, will it be a month, a year, whatever. We'll just take time out of the factor. Then we got to think about the long term. And I mean, there's a lot of shady shit in Biden's corner that screams it's going to get worse. I mean, let's just talk about China, right? There's been, and my father Zod, we've talked about this. There's been a lot of evidence of handholding there and pandering to that market. Sean, we've seen franchises being destroyed from pandering to the Chinese market.
I know.
And I feel like if you let these wackos
China owns so much of America. I mean, like they're like over the past 10 years or so, maybe 15, they've been slowly buying up like large pieces of America. You know, that, I mean, one day they might end up planting their flag on the White House lawn. We don't know.
I know. And I feel like if we were to let Biden and company in, that whole aspect would get a lot worse. There's evidence to support that fact. I mean,
I don't,
you know, and can we vote for something economically that would turn the tide? And then we're going to be right back to these businesses leaving and being co-signed by our government, because what is it all about? The bottom line. They're going to see money from this, but here the common citizen is going to watch factories and stuff repack up their shit and leave. And it's going to be co-signed by our government, and it'll be politics back to the usual standard. And I mean, come on, Sean. We've seen Biden. Can you tell me he's going to make it the full term?
No.
He looks like he can barely string together a sentence. So let's say, I don't wish ill will. This is a hypothetical, but say something happens to Biden, right?
Right.
Worst case scenario. And we're like, oh shit.
Over. And yeah, I know.
And then who takes over? Harris.
I've run the freaking war games in my head, man. You know, I have. I know. Really quick, Lemon Pie. I'm actually not a Democrat. I voted Democratic once in my life, and the rest of the time Republican. I am a registered Democrat, so I guess technically, if you want to classify me Democrat, you would be correct. But I'm actually more of an independent. I will vote for either party, depending on who I think is best for the job. But
see, this is where I think your vote, and I think that a lot of credit doesn't go to the independent vote, because I think that might be a huge swing too, because you know, we differ on a lot of things, as you guys have seen in this hour and a half discussion, because we haven't been debating, we've been laying down facts, take notes. This is how you have a good talk about politics, which I appreciate you doing with me tonight. But
Yeah.
I think that your vote is a key vote because a lot of the independent votes could swing this thing because
I agree.
the numbers I don't believe are as wide as the media would have them. As a matter of fact, I did a whole show on this, how the polling is grossly off.
Well, it was grossly off in 2016 too. I mean, if you were to believe the media,
Oh yeah, we found that out at the end.
It's landslide, man. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I mean, depending on how many people actually did the mail-in ballots versus how many people actually go to the poll next week, you know, we don't know. This could be like the first time in modern history, at least in our lifetimes, where we haven't known who the president was. At least, you know, like with the recount in 2000, that was like what, a week, you know?
Yeah, and you know, you had some valid reasons for that recount.
Sure.
I mean, I know there was a vicious debate. That was actually one, and if you kids don't remember the AOL eras and things like that, that was one where you would have seen the same shit on the internet because that's how vicious that recount was.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is very rare for a candidate to win the popular vote and lose the election. You know, just like Donald Trump, he didn't win the popular vote, but he won the election. You know, it was like George W. Bush Part 2. You know, the popular, and this is why a lot of people have issues with the Electoral College, right? Because the Electoral College was set up like centuries ago, and it doesn't. Our framers like had such foresight, you know, and they framed our foundation, which with as much future projection as anybody could that was not a freaking psychic. You know, they did a fantastic job, but the Electoral College is a problem. You know, I mean, there are when you only need like certain states to win the election, how is that serving the will of America when all you have to do is like really campaign in this state, this state, this state, and this state? You know, that just doesn't seem right to me. Maybe back in the day that seemed right when, you know, everybody was hundreds of miles away, but it just doesn't really apply now. So the Electoral College needs to, at the very least, be modified.
Yeah, I totally agree. And by the way, Stone Cold Jeremy says he likes both of our point of views. Thank you. And look, I appreciate everybody weighing in. We've had 5 to 6 people. I normally get more people on the rewatch, but you know how that goes. But I totally agree. And, you know, this is the great thing, Sean. You're bringing a lot of good, whether I agree with necessarily all your perspectives, you do bring up a lot of good points, which is especially with the Electoral College. I don't think that inherently that thing was ever fair because I've never, to this day, I still don't understand how it works. Like, I don't understand how they come up with some of the stuff they do, or even like having someone win the popular vote but then lose an election. I find it like weird. Like, I feel like over the years they have tried to create more ways for people to win as a cheat, essentially, right?
Oh, sure.
You know, you get all of this and you're guaranteed, and it shouldn't be guaranteed. I mean, every election, there should be, you know, there should be kind of like, it's like, well, okay, the best of the way I could put it, I'll use one of PB's sports analogies. It's like watching your 2 teams battle it out. Do you want a game where it's a complete blowout, or do you want a game that's exciting and close? That's supposed to be that's the fun part for me anyways in politics, is it should be compelling and close to see the race. I should be able to at least identify with both sides, but I'm picking what I think is the better, right? That's essentially what the election process should be. We go with who we think is better, but like any good discussion, you should be able to see both points of views.
Absolutely.
But we don't have that anymore.
No, you're right. And look, as much as I would rather, or as much as I would love to see the Chiefs have a blowout against the Broncos like they did last night on a Sunday night, I'd rather them, have a close game. That way, I don't have to change the channel because I know the Chiefs are going to win, and then have to watch Batwoman.
Oh God, that was so depressing.
Know, right?
But hey, Sean, as DC fans, we can look forward to a little bit of a sidebar. We can look forward to the next season of Batwoman because there's more check boxes. So,
oh yeah. Well, also, you know what? I'm not going to lie. I like the new suit design, and the actress is really easy on the eyes. So, that's
I mean, I agree with that. My issue is when they came out and said that they were doubling down on the whole representation angle, I said, "Oh, it's the writing is not going to change."
No, because it's CW, man. DC generally, and I'm not going to say always, but generally, DC in their movies, they haven't really forced an agenda down. Like Birds of Prey is a rare exception. That was I blame that on the Snyderverse because that was greenlit immediately after Suicide Squad. They gave Margot Robbie way too much creative control too soon, in the character's live action history. But I mean, you also have, you're going to have your tokenism of something. There's going to be something that's not comic book accurate in live action movies, to check a box. But typically, like, DC, like Stargirl was almost completely comic book accurate.
And no politics whatsoever. So down the middle.
No, in fact, you know what? Courtney actually told Pat that she needed him when she could have said, "I don't need you. I'm a strong, independent female. Get the hell away from me. This is my staff. You can't tell me what to do."
I had to come back because you were talking about Batwoman, and then you went to Stargirl, which is such a great show.
I love Stargirl. I love Stargirl. I think Stargirl is that's how DC shines. Marvel, unfortunately, because it's owned by Disney, is willing to push agendas like very forcibly down your throat now, inside the MCU, and that's unfortunate, because the Marvel characters are so good too. But PB, stop barking.
Yeah, he was thinking about Stargirl.
Yeah, Perfect. I think so. But yeah, I think DC has DC. The good thing that I like about DC is that they can do whatever they want because Warner Brothers. Well, I guess technically now AT&T owns Warner Brothers and DC. So, but they can do light movies like, family oriented movies like Shazam. And then they can do something completely dark and gritty like Joker, and it
I don't know if you know me and Stevie J, but we're straight up shills for that movie.
I think
it's a modern masterpiece. One of the greatest shining examples of what comic book movies could and should be. And, Joker took it yet again. Second time that anyone who's played Joker got the Oscar. So suck it, Hollywood.
Oh, I know. And Joker was completely filmed on the original additional budget that Zack Snyder needed to just finish his movie. $70 million. So, and now Zack Snyder is getting, more money. And $70 million was supposed to be for a week of reshoots, when $70 million was like for the entire shoot of the Joker, So yeah, something's really not right there. But that's a different stream, I guess.
Yeah, that's a topic for another day, because we talked about this the other night, and me and PV were combating these Zack Snyder fans, and they were talking about 214's 214. There's 214 minutes. And I was like, yes, that would be the original cut. But he added a freaking extra hour. So what you're getting by definition is not a new or it's not an old product. It is new. When you take something that is older and you add on to it, you are thus making it a new thing, because you're adding stuff. And that's the key.
He might be finishing off Justice League the way he wanted to, but I think he's also shoehorning in Justice League Part 2 as much as he can.
Yeah, because he doesn't know if he's going to get another opportunity to do this.
No, because see this is completely AT&T. If this were up to Warner Brothers absolutely wanted nothing to do with Zack Snyder after they let him go. And look, Zack Snyder was really screwed over by Warner Brothers. They let him go and lied about the reasonings, when he was really fired, and they're like, yeah, we parted ways so he could go grieve his daughter. And it was total bullshit. And look, I'm all for Zack being able to finish his original vision. I think that's great for directors, but this is way more than finishing his original vision. He's trying to get back into DC, and I'm glad that the head of DC had the foresight to say, yeah, okay, so the Snyder Cut is coming, but it's an Elseworld story. This is not like Prime Earth. So no matter what happens in the Snyder Cut, this is not going to affect what we're going to do moving forward, because Flashpoint is going to do a soft reboot and we're going to redefine everything. So yeah. So you know what? The Snyder Cut fans, they're going to get whatever it is. And I'm going to watch it because I'm a DC fan, but Zack Snyder doesn't understand the core of DC. It's always seemed like an Elseworld story. With the exception of, I will say that I enjoyed the backstory to Man of Steel. Seeing how Clark had to learn to use and harness his powers, as a young kid, how it freaked him out and stuff. I thought that was really cool. We never saw that in the Christopher Reeve films. And but aside from that, Henry Cavill even wants to play a more traditional Superman. And
yeah, I feel bad for the actors who I felt like didn't get a choice. And I'm not talking about Jared Leto. I still think that version of the Joker should not have been included. Sorry. I'm a huge Jared Leto fan. He's great. He's a phenomenal actor. Mm-hmm. I think what was given to him and what he was allowed to do was off the rails. And I blame that on the people who made the movie. David Ayer. Don't ever release that cut. But
out of the two examples, the Snyder Cut and David Ayer saying that he has a cut, I completely believe that David Ayer has a full cut, because
there was stuff in the trailers we didn't even see. Yeah. I believe he does have an actual
Jared Leto was cut, because most of his performance ended up being cut out of the movie. David Ayer, I do believe, has a completely other cut that is, could be ready to go, maybe with a little finessing. It's not going to require, $100 million plus. No. So, but yeah, the Jared Leto, his Joker. Look, I understand, after you have two very iconic Jokers with Jack Nicholson and even a more so with Heath Ledger. You know, you're gonna instinctively want to change it up, you know, to where people are not going to compare. But man, there is a comic book accurate version of the Joker that they were trying to play with, you know, where he has a slick back hair and stuff like that. But look, he didn't need the grills, he didn't need the tattoos. You know,
Oh God.
Harley Quinn does not need the tattoos. So yeah, that was just, again, you know, that was all under the watch when Zack Snyder was like basically the Kevin Feige of the DCEU. So
which you know, again, I think there's a lot of different factors that play into this, but I've had it point out, and you know, I watch like the Critical Drunk and things like that, or the Critical Drinker. I said drunk. Probably co-sign on that though. And you know, I've commented on his thread and things like that, but he's brought up a good points with like Snyder is good at visuals, but I don't co-sign with writing story. He's not a good story writer at all.
Dude, I have said that exact same thing. You know, if you had somebody else writing the story and Zack Snyder directing all of the cinematography, you know, setting up the scenes, all of that stuff, you know, for the visuals, yeah, sign me up for that, because that's probably going to be a freaking awesome movie. But don't ever let Zack Snyder have a pen when he's around the script, you know?
Yeah, because that, I mean, like, and that's the big difference is that I feel like the MCU versus the DCU had. I think that honestly, the animated universe did it much better.
Oh, the DC animated universe is the best shared universe of all time. Fight me, you know.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like the Justice League Dark Apocalypse, oh my God, like I've watched that so many times. And well, yeah, my boy,
I mean, like the original DCAU that started with Batman the Animated Series, and you know, went all the way through Justice League Unlimited, Batman Beyond, Static Shock, the Zeta Project, Superman the Animated Series, you know, Batman the Mask of the Phantasm, Batman Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, and even the Justice League and the Fatal 8 or something, you know.
Yeah, and Under the Hood was in there too.
Yeah, basically everything that had Kevin Conroy voicing Batman, with the exception of The Killing Joke, because that was just horrible.
Yeah, the Killing Joke, I have mixed feelings on that. I am of the opinion that I thought it was good if you cut out the beginning, because the actual Killing Joke is just about maybe 45 minutes right. story worth. The stuff that was in the beginning you didn't need.
Like the sex on the rooftop between spoiler alert, between Batman and Batgirl. I don't remember.
See, I didn't have a problem with that. I thought Batgirl was hot.
I mean, the nature, sure, but I mean, that was not in the story. They couldn't make a full-length movie out of The Killing Joke. You know, it just wasn't long enough, so they had to add filler. And PB, sure, we can fight, but we're gonna have to wear masks, stand about 12 feet apart, and throw rocks at each other. If you're okay.
Yeah, but I think that we definitely needed different streams for that, because I'd love to have a talk with you about that stuff, because I don't know if you knew, but I'm a huge DC fan, so.
Well, I mean, you go by the name General Zod.
You know what? I'm just gonna say it now. The most underrated villain of all time. It pisses me off because you know who always gets the limelight and the spotlight. And I'm gonna go on my rant now. You have Lex Luthor and Brainiac and all those guys. You know, people forget General Zod blew up a planet. I mean, and I never see anyone attempting a project to do an origin story on Zod
What
or
planet
making
did
a
you
dark.
blow up?
I mean, wouldn't you like to see an R-rated movie on Zod? How fucking cool would that be?
Well, sure, but what planet did General Zod blow up? It wasn't Krypton.
I mean, essentially, he did start a war and kind of halt everything, which, I mean, people argue that Zod's responsible. I've been saying for years he's not. So
Well,
I
yeah,
definitely.
he's not. I mean, Krypton, Jor-El was like warning them. He was trying to warn them for quite a while. He's like, look, the the planet is becoming unstable. We need to do something. We need to act now. And the council was like, oh, Jor-El, you're high on crack. Go get treatment. So yeah, I mean, Zod, he didn't help the matter, but he didn't.
But
He didn't.
it's been a couple of storylines though, where if he had taken it over, he probably would have averted the crisis that happened
It's possible.
because he saw it coming too.
It's possible. I mean, Zod and Jor-El, in many iterations were like very close friends for a long time. So who knows? And it's basically, it's all up to whoever is going to write the story. But yeah,
We need an R-rated Zod movie. I'm just saying. They want me to pencil down some ideas. I got some great ideas.
I mean,
Very-
look, I didn't think when they first announced there was going to be a Joker movie, I was like, really? A Joker movie? I just don't think there's enough about Joker that really merits its own movie. And I mean, it's cool that it's going to be rated R, but okay. But then I saw the movie, I was like, all right, cool. I get it now. So, I mean, I would love to see like because that's one thing that we don't have. We don't have very many superhero villain origin. Well, actually, I don't think we have any superhero origin movies except for Joker, right? Not that I can think of. So, I mean, I would love to see like a Lex Luthor or Luthor, I'm sorry, like really edgy, maybe not origin, but maybe like where he becomes president or something like that. I mean, I can't wait to see, not in this Snyder cut because he looked weak as hell, but I can't wait to finally see like the real dark side, in the new Gods movie that hopefully is going to get made at some point, because Darkseid is such a badass. Darkseid would beat the living shit out of Thanos. I mean, it would not.
Yeah, like Gary North said, a young Zod origin movie. I think
cool.
that would be great. And of course, Stone Cold Jeremy says, Zod, just because you want an R-rated movie doesn't mean that they will cast you. If you've seen me in my streams, I could pull it off. Just dye the beard a little bit blacker. I definitely would be a strong candidate.
I don't know, man, but I mean, between you and like the OG Zod, Terrence Stamp, like who is like uber old now, they were like, Terrence, do you think you're going to be alive long enough to film this movie?
Oh yeah, that would totally be. They totally do that because there's no talent that could do that now. But yeah, I've kind of gotten off. We've gone off the rails with this a little bit, so I just wanted to kind of wind things down, and maybe I had such a great.
This is how I just think the fact that we have gone off the rails, on DC, and what have you, it just shows that you can have a respectful political conversation, not agree about everything, but you don't have to scream and point fingers. I mean, when you can make valid points at the end of everything, you don't have to agree. It's all good, because everybody, and this is the thing that I really, really want people to take away from this. You have the ability, and not just the ability, but you have the duty to make up your own mind. Regardless of what anybody says, screw them. If they don't like you because of who you vote for, then they weren't your friend anyway.
Yes, I totally agree. Uh, PB wants to know from both of us, will the New Gods movie be connected to the Titans TV show because of Trigon? I don't believe so.
No,
I think Titans is on a different Earth.
Titans has been established. I mean, they since when they announced Flashpoint, they confirmed that everything that has happened and everything that will happen is canon, but it is all of this stuff is part of the multiverse. So like the CW shows, they're part of their own their own earths, I guess, where they were multiple earths until Crisis. And then the CW or the DC shows like Titans and Swamp Thing and all of that stuff, they're on their own earth as well. Unfortunately, Stargirl is going to be part of CW, which, man, I don't. What? Well, look, I mean, Jeff Johns and Greg Berlanti, who did the first season, they're still going to do the second season. So I don't really foresee many problems with that. But I just don't understand why they didn't move the show to HBO Max like they're doing with Titan.
Yeah, because I mean, it wasn't as dark as the other DC shows, as far as the violence and the language.
It doesn't have to be. That's the beauty of DC. You can.
No, but what I'm saying is, I think that's how they were looking at it, was that a lot more of the grittier shows are going to HBO Max, where they can kind of have that. Whereas Stargirl does fit that CW mold, where it's just edgy enough to keep interest, but not too edgy to where they can't get that demographic that they're always shooting for. I just hope they don't put that shit in that they normally put in with CW shows. You know what I mean? The love stories that no one fucking cares about, that they feel they just have to have a relationship in every single show that they do.
The reason I have hope is because Courtney is based on Jeff Johns' late sister who died in a plane crash. Jeff Johns is heavily involved in this. He created the character as a tribute to his late sister. So
that's a nice story.
Yeah, so I don't believe that Jeff Johns is going to let Stargirl go off the rails. I think he would raise like 3 kinds of hell if CW started to try to do their typical crap.
Yeah, there's a lot of evidence that I agree, but I just go by the track record too. And
sure, Arrow. In fact, because of HBO Max, DC, when these series start to end, like Supergirl, this is the final season, when these go off the air, they need to stop bringing shows to the or DC shows to the CW, because you have HBO Max to where you can do whatever you want. Do like 10 episodes with a very elevated budget. You don't need to do like 22 episodes per season. Just do 10-hour-long or 45-minute long episodes with like a tremendous budget. Dude, like if Brandon Routh was given a standalone Superman show the way he looked in Crisis as Kingdom Come Superman, I'd be like, hell yeah, give me that Superman standalone story.
Not what we got in Supergirl. Oh
Jesus. Yeah, I mean, and so we have Superman and Lois coming to the CW this, like, in January or whenever they're going to be able to air. And man, that Brandon Routh, when he was standing next to like Tyler in Crisis, Brandon just towered over him. I mean, he looked like he could just break him over his freaking knee. And oh, dude, they made the Supergirl Superman such a bitch. And
yeah, I totally agree. And that's the problem with CW. And like you said, they always claim budget, but I think they're in an old mindset that old television has with the 22 format. So one of my favorite shows is Lucifer.
Okay.
Love that show. Tom Ellis is a national treasure. He is probably everything I had pictured Lucifer being, brought to life, with the sarcasm and all that, and British. So, cheerio. But I mean, when it was on Fox, there was a lot of things I felt that they couldn't do as close to the line as they did. And I give them credit for taking the controversy from these wacky groups saying, oh, it's a terrible show because it makes the devil look good, which watch the show, it doesn't. I do respect what they did, but the format was too long and no one wants to sit there and have basically filler and then, a splintered story. So you have 23 episodes or so, and then you'll have 11 or 12 on one plot and then the rest on another subplot, which is how the format basically works. And when it went to Netflix, the writing felt a lot tighter because when they shortened the episode count, I felt like it was more focused on whatever the main plot of the season was.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the problem, not only with the shows themselves, but the budget. If you cut down on some of those episodes, and then you just tighten and focus on one villain or one plot for the season, you'll make a better story, and you'll have more of a budget to play with. I
agree. So, and the one thing that DC, one of really the main thing that DC has done that I really have an issue with is they're spreading their catalog over way too many different networks. They had Smallville on the WB, which became the CW. Okay, well, that was the original. That was the OG. 10 years of Smallville, and nothing in the Arrowverse touches Smallville. The only thing that comes close, in my opinion, was a few seasons of Arrow. The writing on Smallville was just so much better than most things in the Arrowverse, but they're spreading things. I agree. They're spreading things over to Netflix. They're spreading things over to Epics. There was Krypton on Sci-Fi. Just consolidate all your stuff on a channel that you own, like HBO Max or a streaming service that you own. Stop giving your stuff to different networks that are just going to end up having the say-so over when something is going to be canceled or the production budget or what have you. Manage your properties better, and with HBO Max, that is a perfect way just to put all of your stuff there. They own.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Swamp Thing, I don't know why that they would talk about putting that on the CW because it was brilliant the way it was. So underrated. Me and Perp Minded campaign hard for that.
After the first episode or before, I think it was actually before it aired. I don't know. Swamp Thing was amazing.
Yeah, it really was. It nailed the character good. The special effects were some of the best I've seen in a superhero show in a long time. And it had some tight writing, some good stars in it too. And I'm just I know the behind the scenes by it, but I just think that was a lot of the company too. But I mean, I thought that, when they talked about resurrecting it, that's good. But now you're going to put it on the CW and now you're going to scale back what made it so intriguing and good. Because they're definitely going to tone down the violence. I've seen some CW episodes versus what was on DC Universe. I'm like, holy shit, this is so
because, one, it's network TV, and two, it's the pussy CW.
Yes, all that stuff is going to be toned down, and now they don't even have the same writing team. James Wan was on it. James Wan.
Yeah. That's why there was such a horror aspect to it, and I thought that was great. That was fantastic. But in this world of cancel culture that we have, why can't we just all agree that the CW just needs to be canceled in general?
Oh man, let me tell you, the only thing that I liked, and I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this, but I don't care. I love the Vampire Diaries, everything connected to it. I like the originals better because it had less of that I love you bullshit in it. Like, oh, I'm with this one this week. Like the originals was pretty tight writing. Very, very much more mature than I think the CW deserved. It was a pretty good acted show for what it was.
Any vampire story that does not have the vampire sparkle, I'm going to give a certain amount of respect to.
Yeah, I mean, this was a different take. I liked everything that they did, but then like me and my mom, we started with Vampire Diaries, and my mom had the great mindset, and this is how this kind of relates back to what we're talking about. She got into the Vampire Diaries when I was watching it, and she saw someone's fingers get cut off. She's like, "What the hell are you watching?" And I go, "Oh, let me show you." It's but the but the problem she had was, as cool and violent scenes as that show has, it has a lot of like people's hearts being ripped out of their chest. There's some crazy shit on that show. But as cool as it was, there was a certain there. What was that?
Danny Comic Chat is in the chat.
Oh, what up, Comic Chat? Good to see you. As cool as that was, the thing she had a problem with was the love stories. Like the thing between Damon and Stefan is like, I don't give a shit. Pick one. I mean, for instance, okay, True Blood on HBO. That was like the gold standard for me for vampire shows because that shit was crazy. And they had that, but it never once really held up the story. I mean, it was a part of the story, but you didn't have this whole thing where there were long drawn out things. I mean, long drawn out sex scenes, but you know, that's HBO.
Rogue was in it, right? So I was looking
yeah,
at Anna Paquin. Sure, give me some of that. Yeah.
Oh, let me tell you, that was the highlight. Like people was like, oh, I go, hey, if I get to see her naked once a week on a show, sign me up. So I watched every season, but but you also had the smart writing that you could put into it. And the problem with the CW is they feel like there's this demographic that watches it that they have to cater to. And my mom was sitting there watching these with me, and we watch them on Netflix, and she'd skip over like large chunks of the episode, and we wouldn't miss anything, and it'd just be terrible.
Well,
like
that's the thing with as much as I love the Arrowverse, because I'm DC, through and through. I will acknowledge all of the Arrowverse's shortcomings. But I mean, come on, even with Arrow, I mean all of the time spent between Oliver and Felicity, and I'm like, dude, can't you just put your relationship on hold, like Batman does, and just go out and put like more arrows into people? Come on.
I mean, yeah, when you take the first two seasons, which I think we can both agree were like,
oh, they're great.
They put that show on the map, right? When you take those amazing seasons and then you compare them to what came later, some of the other seasons were good, but they just didn't hit that point because they got off topic.
Yeah,
and
Felicity and Oliver ended up getting married. And you want to talk about comic book accuracy. I mean, Oliver and Dinah Laurel Lance, with Black Canary, they're actually the ones that are supposed to be involved. Felicity, to my knowledge, is a character that was created for the series. Just that's just the CW. And what scares me most of all, this show had its cheesy moments, but you mentioned National Treasure earlier with Tom Ellis. They're filming it right now with Jared Padalecki, a reboot of Walker Texas Ranger, and oh my God, you're going to take a series that was like super Chuck Norris, super conservative Chuck Norris, and you're going to give it the CW treatment as Cordell Walker.
Oh God, it is going to, that show is going to crash and burn. And really quick, comics chat. Yes, I've seen The Strain. I like it till about the last season. I do have some issues with the ending of it. I've read the book, and I felt like the book did it slightly better, which the irony is Guillermo del Toro, who did the book, also was responsible for the show. So why the fuck they switched it up so much, I have no clue. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty intelligent take on the vampire lore. But yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to get that away.
But yeah, I mean, the fact that they got their hands on Walker Texas Ranger, and I understand Walker Texas Ranger was far from perfect, but you know, I happen to love Chuck Norris movies. You know, as bad as an actor as he has been, you know, I mean, there are just some I grew up, I loved the movie Sidekicks. You know, that is one of my favorite Chuck Norris movies. You know, and the fact that Chuck Norris in his day was like a super hardcore, legit martial artist. You know, I mean, he was in a movie with Bruce Lee, dude. I mean,
Enter the Dragon.
Yeah, I mean, he had a fight scene with Bruce freaking Lee. Come on.
He ripped off his chest hair, man. That was great. That was so funny. When I watched it as a kid, I was like, whoa. I watched it recently. I'm like, that shit is hilarious. He ripped his chest hair out. Like, oh man. And that was from what I heard, that was like real deal chest hair. Like, Chuck's a man's man, because if I had chest hair like that, I would not let someone rip it out of my chest. That shit would hurt.
I know. I mean,
that's the kind of actors they were, man.
I know, Chuck, but I mean, come on, dude. You see how thick his beard is. If you've never seen Enter the Dragon, just apply that to his chest a little bit. You know, I mean, good Lord, it's like having a limb ripped off of you. I'm sure. PB says, why don't they introduce Corona to Norris to find the cure? Yeah.
yeah. Oh man. And the Chuck Norris jokes that came out. And I totally agree with you, man. And this is the problem we have with media in general. And you know, we got kind of really sidetracked, but it's just, it all swings back around with politics, with everything. Everything has just been taken and hijacked. And you know,
there are no original ideas anymore. I mean,
no, nothing. Like, everyone steals something, everyone borrows something. Disney remaking everything. I mean, there is original ideas, but they don't see them as marketable, right. And that's the issue we have.
They would rather.
I mean, there's original ideas out there.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, it's not like people just automatically all of a sudden lost the ability to come up with original concepts. It's the fact that these studios are more likely to greenlight a reboot of like an obscure 70s TV series or something, you know, and more than they are going to back like the innovator. Like today, unfortunately you don't have like the abundance of originality that we had in the 80s and the 90s. Like today, if it was never created today, you would never have a Back to the Future. You would never have the Indiana Jones movies. You know, I mean, you just wouldn't. Like, I mean, Hollywood will not fund these things. Now they will.
No, because they got slammed with two things. Look, originality died before 2016, but I think the benchmark of this change was that new Ghostbusters, and it's been downhill from there.
Thank God, Sony greenlit Ghostbusters Afterlife. Now, I mean, we were supposed to see this, I think, back in June, and you know, we don't know how this is going to be, but you know, everyone has said this is, you know, kind of a love letter to the fans. You know, it is the handoff that all the fans wanted with Ghostbusters 2016. It's got the surviving original cast in there. They're going to suit up one more time, and they're going to hand it off to what looks like to be like relatives of Egon's, which, you know, is very fitting since Harold is no longer with us. And if this is, you know, even if this is not as good as Ghostbusters, I'm going to be fine with it because they're going, and if it's the last movie ever made with Ghostbusters, I'm going to be fine with it because they ended it the way that it should have, potentially been ended. You know,
I'm gonna tell you with this because you said pass off, which I think is a great analogy. I think the benchmark for that, and I'm so grateful that it got made, surprisingly by YouTube. But Cobra Kai proved how you properly pass the torch. And now I care about the younger. I found myself really getting invested in the younger characters, which I didn't think was going to happen.
Yep.
But the way that they do it, and they kind of mirror, you know, Danielle and Johnny in the characters, makes you care about the new cast.
Yeah.
Which is what so many studios make a mistake on. If you just tell the story with the old people that they know, and you slowly trick people by like having a mirror of these younger people, kind of like life is, you know, and you have a mirror of these people that you see in the characters, the younger characters casted, people will accept it a lot more, because then I think the younger story is a lot more interesting. I mean, when those two girls were fighting in season 2, that was like some of my favorite shit, because I was like, yeah, women are catty like that. I could totally see that happening in high school. That is like a very high school thing.
Yeah,
but there's so many layers to that story.
And they the creators that and the showrunners and the writers, you know, very much respected the legacy of the Karate Kid films, you know, keeping Johnny a relic of the 80s. You know, like he is so, I mean, if Johnny was a real person, you know, he like cancel culture would have like gotten to him like by, you know, way long ago. You know?
Oh God, yeah.
You know, I mean, he was so he's set in his ways. He didn't even know how to use a computer. You know, it was just refreshing that they actually showed Johnny Lawrence as a relic of the 80s, because, you know, people that age, you know, a lot of people are still that way, you know, and I really appreciated that they did not ignore or gloss over that fact.
Yeah, I think it shows really smart writing. And I said mirror, not Mira. Son of a bitch. Still even trolling me in the comments, Mr. PB. But yeah, yeah, and I think that's instead of just doing all these reboots, remakes, and all of that stuff, really taking cues from like a show that made that. And I have PB in the comments saying I only care about Johnny, which you can do that.
That's cool.
But yeah, you could still just care about one character, but it's so well written that they don't forget the character, because a lot of shows start pushing things back and things like that. And then in season 2, yeah, it focused a lot on the younger cast, but you still had the struggle of the older cast, and they never like seemed to push anybody aside. They seem to do a good job giving everybody their scenes, their chance to shine. And this is the thing. And like now Hollywood's all like, oh, this Karate Kid thing did so well. Like Netflix jumped right on it because they you know, they see how marketable that is. But it's like, yeah, you know, if you make a product that is good and well written, that someone gives a shit about any of your characters, they'll tune in to watch it. They'll enjoy your show. It's staggering. I know, it's amazing. You know, write stuff that people want.
What's really interesting about Cobra Kai is that the main difference from Cobra Kai to like the Karate Kid original movie and like even the first 3 films overall, is that they seem to make you care more about Johnny than Daniel. Like Daniel is coming off as more of an asshole now than Johnny. I mean, Johnny is flawed, but you know, he has tried to come to terms, you know, with like his being it like a you know, a absentee dad and stuff like that. And you know, he's trying to he tried to remake Cobra Kai with different values, and he's really tried to just remake so much of his life. And you know, whether it was Daniel or if it was Kreese, you know, there was always something there that just kept shitting on him over and over, you know.
Yeah, I like that. PB said Daniel was always the villain, and yeah, from a certain perspective, you can actually say that, because when now I rewatch The Karate Kid, I see it through a new lens. I'm like, holy fuck! Like, actually, you could make an argument for Daniel being the villain of that movie, because he's a new kid who comes to town, steals this guy's girlfriend, and then humiliates him and effectively destroys his life. And yeah, you know, there's other factors, Creasy, and you know, the way he chose to beat him up in certain scenes. But when you think about it, he was really just reacting to what was going on in high school.
Sure. I mean, honestly, you could make the argument that if Daniel had not have been a dick, you know, at the Halloween dance, you know, and like turn the hose on Johnny, he would have never gotten his ass kicked that bad to begin with. You know, if you know, Mr. Miyagi probably wouldn't have had to like come in and like whoop everybody's ass. And but yeah, but I mean, again, you know, that's just, you know, high school antics, right? I mean, kids are going to do things without thinking, but I mean, that whole thing could have just been completely avoided.
Yeah, and that's the great thing too, and I think that's why Daniel comes off as more of an asshole in the show, because it's a great thing that it not only addresses these two's like mythical rivalry, but it is a great story on life. No one is the same when they grow up.
No.
You know, you see things differently than when you were in high school or you were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I connect to the most, is that, yeah, you know, life does throw shit at you and things change. And no matter how much your parents try to prepare you, or your teachers or whatever, you got to experience the good and the bad. And it changes people to different ways. You know, even if you get on the upswing, you still change as a person. And I think that's very well conveyed in the show, and how these two act towards each other.
I think Rocky summed it up the best in Rocky Balboa when he was talking to his son. He's like, you know, it's not how hard you can hit, it's how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. You know, nothing's going to hit as hard as life, you know?
Oh yeah.
And you know, that was great writing by Stallone, by the way. I mean, Stallone is a very underrated writer. I mean, Rocky was his brainchild. That was just such a great scene, because his son was being such a little bitch throughout that movie. You know, if I were the Italian stallion, I'd have been like, I'm going to beat the fuck out of you, you know?
Hey, look, I'm just going to have to punch you.
I mean, yeah, I'm like, you're my kid, and you're acting like this little whatever, you know, and I didn't raise you to be like this. And, you know,
oh my God, kids, let me tell you, if I could name this, I love my daughter, but kids are a whole, it's like, sometimes if you're a parent and you can't tell me you haven't thought about at least once in your life, you know, maybe locking them out of the house during a cold day or something like that, then you're lying to me and yourself. Because
I think
let me tell you something, kids can be pricks.
I think that's called child abuse, child endangerment.
I am Zod. My little dictator has learned by fire.
I guess.
Like, you're gonna rule the world. You gotta have harsh lessons. But
and really that's a great segue back to, politics. If you're going to, honestly, if you're going to be the leader of the free world, you have to be willing to make some very, very hard and harsh decisions, no matter what side you're on.
Yes, I agree. And you know what? No matter what side and what happens, I do appreciate today having you on to have this talk. I had a blast. I know we got derailed there for probably the last hour, 24 minutes or so, but I'm really glad that we could have a talk here today, that we could have differing views on things, but that we could sit here and talk. And as you guys can see, we are always bonded by our love for DC. So, I mean, I didn't imagine us being like, fuck you, I'm done.
Right. I mean, so you're clearly voting for Trump. I'm voting for Biden. I voted for Trump in 2016, but I'm changing to Biden in 2020 because I just don't like the ways that he's handled, certain things, with the coronavirus and stuff like that. So, and that's totally cool, and no matter who wins, my hope is that, America will be better off and, the virus will get a vaccine and people can start to reclaim their life. This is not a political thing. This is a humanity, a human race issue. This affects us all, and we all deserve to be able to go outdoors and be around our friends and family without the fear of contracting this horrible virus. And whoever can get things done the best and the quickest and the safest, I hope that person wins.
And as for me, I'm going to vote Trump, but I'm going to take a little bit of a different detour where I think that my reason is looking towards the future, and economics is going, this virus will pass. We all know that. And, all those who've gotten it, I'm glad that you're safe. If you've lost someone, that is terrible. This is a thing, and hopefully we deal with it quickly, efficiently, and most importantly, safely.
Yes.
But at the same time, I'm going to be looking for what's going to happen with our economy and what's going to happen with going forward with being tougher on foreign policies and things like that. And I don't think that Biden or Harris have a good stance on that. And that affects our future just as much as Corona.
You're right, because I mean, look, like I've said, I don't think Biden is a very strong candidate, but I'm voting for him, for the reasons that I've laid out. However, when you're dealing with something like this virus that is just like destroying the economy, this is the perfect example for something very fascist or very socialist to come in, and start to take over. Like we could see like big change and in a very bad way if we're not careful.
Yeah, and that's the thing I want to safeguard, because when we get past this, which I think we both agree we will get past it.
Yeah.
Neither side is gonna let because as bad as it is to say, they're thinking about their constituents. Obviously, both parties, they're definitely scrambling to get a hold of this thing. So that's not even an issue to me. When we get past this, which we will, and we're able to, get back to business as usual, I think then it's going to come down to, I've got to look at the very long term, which is, okay, what's going to happen after, because building up the economy and the infrastructure and, building up the businesses is going to be important. And it terrifies me what the other side is going to do with that. It honestly does. I mean, We've seen things with Biden dealing with the Chinese, and all sorts of stuff. And I don't want more foreign countries getting an even larger foothold in an economy that could be American run, and have that the same thing we've had, which is businesses taking their business out of the country and hurting the American worker. I think that is going to devastate our economy. So then we'll go back to the way we had it. And you won't see all these job openings that I see constantly. And you won't see the opportunity for people to open up new businesses and things like that, because you're going to come to a point where corporate America is going to start stomping out the little guy. And we can't let that happen, man. Yeah. I mean, we're already seeing shades of it. And the growth of big companies, Disney and others, past couple of years has been scary. It's been, it's not feeling like a free market anymore.
But I mean, unfortunately, Disney was, all of this stuff lately, Fox and everything. That merger was approved under the Trump administration. So,
yeah, but there were talks about who approved that. And Disney's shifty. They stayed within the guidelines of the law.
It had to be approved by the government, as all like big mergers like that do. So, I mean, who is the commander in chief? I mean, the buck is always supposed to stop with the president, right? I mean, that's how it's always been. So I think I would have a little more respect for Trump if he would openly, say that he takes responsibility for some of his missteps. When he was asked if he would change anything, and he said no, a couple of weeks ago, that really rubbed me the wrong way.
I would argue, though, as a leader, you can admit, and I do agree, maybe admit what you did wrong, but you can't openly say that you regret the choice, because that shows a sign of weakness within itself. Yeah, sure, you can admit a choice is wrong, but you should stand by what you did, because you're a leader, right or wrong, you made that decision. I mean, you've had military generals in history that, stand by what they've done. Some of what they did turned out good. Some we have stories about. So, I mean, but if you ask any of them, I don't think they would ever back down on the choices that they've made. And some of it has shaped the very history we have today.
Well, I'll give you some examples. Ronald Reagan said, he admitted his wrongdoings. He said that he didn't initially know about the Iran Contra thing, but he said, essentially, I'm the president and I take full responsibility for it. George W. Bush said he took full responsibility for the repercussions of the war. Bill Clinton said the same thing. He said, and then Barack Obama said the buck stopped with him. So, if all of these presidents can take full responsibility for something, why can't Trump?
I agree, and I disagree. I don't even think that, my take on it is a president shouldn't have to apologize. That's how I personally see it. I mean, even if I go to Bill or any of them, except for the Monica Lewinsky thing, but that's a whole different other thing, that should definitely get an apology, because that's sort of an abuse. That's a different can of worms.
I mean, the Monica Lewinsky thing, if it wouldn't have been for like Linda Tripp and Ken of the Star, whoever they were, that would have just been two consenting adults, and what the president does in his or her personal life, as long as they're doing their job, that is none of our business. JFK, Marilyn Monroe, that was none of our business, but that just goes back to the whole thing of, things are so toxic and have been, for so long in our political system, that one party is always trying to expose something the other party did, when the party that's trying to expose the other party is just as guilty, just in something like a completely different way. So everyone has dirt, grow freaking up, man.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I do agree with you on that one. Essentially everyone in Washington, if we're going with the apology route, I'm sure everybody right down to Congress should be apologizing about something. Even now as we speak, they should probably be apologizing about things.
We need to start.
I think if we took an inventory, we wouldn't have enough time or press conferences in the world for everyone to make an apology for it. But I do understand. I don't agree with it, but I do understand where you're coming from with that. And at points I do think maybe not necessarily apologizing, but scaling down some of the stuff would probably go a long way.
I mean, look, if you would just stop being like so bullyish, Crazy Nancy, calling her Crazy Nancy. Like he literally calls people names like he's a second grader,
Yeah, but let's not. Nancy has done her own fair share of throwing tantrums and calling names too.
But the president of the United States should be above all of this stuff. They're representing you and I and everybody else to the rest of the world. We're getting judged by his actions, just like, like I wanted to clarify earlier that the Chinese government is to blame, not the Chinese people, because a lot of people are looking at America and they're thinking, my God, what has America come to? And
but a lot of countries too also have their own issues.
But you can't hold the people. You can't hold the people responsible for the actions of a government, especially now when elections are essentially just dog and pony shows. I would not be surprised if they've already figured out, just for decades, who's going to win, and they just put on this entire charade for shits and giggles. I would
to make the American people think we've got a stronger say than what's actually being projected. I wouldn't argue that point with the way things are. Trump may have been a glitch in their matrix by the way that they reacted, because people were very, very shocked.
Lemon pie, no. Trump would have to be more than polite. Like I said, I voted for him in 2016, but I don't agree with how he's handled the pandemic, and that is mainly why I'm not voting for him.
Now let's put a flip on this. Say Trump gets elected again, right? And he comes back, and the corona dies down, whatever great measurements happen, a vaccine comes out, something like that, and everything's implemented well. Would you still have the same opinion? Because it sounds like to me the corona thing is, and some of what he says, which is the norm, is what's kind of the deal breaker for you. Do you think then maybe your opinion would flip hey, this was, not as bad of a choice, or worse could have happened?
I'm not afraid to admit that I'm wrong, or that I was wrong, or that I made a bad choice. Like so many people, out there in the Twitter sphere and on the internet, and this toxic culture that we have. If he gets reelected and he is able to get all of this under control, we have a vaccine or 2 or 3 that work. The economy gets back on track. Jobs are good again. People are not having to worry about buying food or paying for their house payment. Then yeah, absolutely, and I don't care. If he does, that's great. I will celebrate that with the rest of America. I'm not going I am not someone that is going to just bash the president because they are not who I voted for. No, if they end up doing good, I'm going to praise them for what they've done, regardless.
And I think me, myself, and the chat here will definitely agree with that sentiment. Just the way you presented yourself, Stone Cold Jeremy said it before. We both have each laid out good and compelling facts. So I would be inclined to believe you, sir, because look, the fact that you even reached out and said, "Hey, you know what we should do? We should have a talk."
Yeah.
I wish more people would have that mindset, because I am willing to talk to anybody on the other side. Well, you've known me for a while. I'm willing to talk to anybody about anything at any time.
Sure.
That's just the way I am. And I don't get like, oh, just straight attack. I want to hear what you have to say, because I think that's the problem that's missing. That's why I started my channel. I think that's why half of us started our channels, is that we don't get the chance to state our opinions anymore.
Wanted to have a voice, yeah.
And talk.
Yeah. the thing about America is there shouldn't be the other side. There should just be the American talking to an American. I mean, we don't have to pick sides. This is not a freaking war. I mean, it's not. We're not at war against each other. Politics has divided us so much. There is so much hatred in this country right now. And it's just, it breaks my heart that, kids are going to have to grow up in this culture, because when we were growing up, things were completely different. Yeah. I mean, Democrats or Republicans, they crashed, or they clashed and stuff, but most of the time they could still work together and get things done. Now, I mean, in this pandemic, the Congress can't even work together to say, okay, well, this $1.8 trillion that the Republicans want, yeah, that's not as much that we, the Democrats, want, but for the betterment of the American people, we're going to agree to it just so we can help the American people. I mean, and that is the biggest example of the problem with our society right now, is that they're too busy playing politics. They want their own way, and they don't care how much we have to suffer, because that $1.8 trillion would help us. I mean, before the election, and whoever wins the election, and they if they feel the need to give us more stimulus checks, which I think we should probably have, depending on how the economy rebounds and how quick it does, then that would be great. But they could give us this just to hold us over, but they didn't. They don't care. That's where we're at.
Yeah, and I would argue that our points, and even your point, doesn't even necessarily pertain more to the president, but more to the Congress, man. I think the Congress votes are just as important, or the Congress elections, because right now we're at a dead standstill in the House, like nothing I've ever seen.
What I would
do, crazy.
In a perfect world, Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi both get the axe, and let's get new leaders.
You and me will never disagree on that. You've heard what I think of that psycho bitch Pelosi.
Yeah.
I mean, and McConnell's no different.
No. I love that he came to work the other day, like all bruised up and bandaged, and people asked him what the problem was, and he's like, "Oh, there's no matter to talk about." It's like, man, what kinky type of lifestyle do you have, dude? Like, your face is all bruised up, your hand is all bruised up. Who did you try to get into? I mean, was this like a Rudy Giuliani, like Borat 2 type situation?
That movie was hilarious, by the way. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy to me. I think it's come down to that. I mean, I also don't think we've fully seen what Trump's able to do because of the pushback in Congress. And I would once again say that a lot more of the blame. I know the buck stops with the president, but there is some blame with the Congress here too, because the Congress,
a lot of blame to go with Congress.
I mean, they've roadblocked before the pandemic. They've roadblocked so many things that could have helped or made sense to put into place. And so, I mean, I don't even think we've seen what the president could do, because he's sitting there with a bunch of fifth graders arguing constantly.
That's a very good estimate, because I think they would actually be more like kindergartners, but
I was trying to be a little bit generous.
I know you're far more generous to them than I am, but yeah. And you know what? I've never been a fan of one political party like winning the trifecta. I think there needs to be, if you have a Republican president or a Democratic president, I think the House or the Senate, one of the two, needs to be the other party, because otherwise things just start to like go through without, they like just push stuff through under the radar. Like, look at this hand, don't pay attention to the man over there, and also, but then again, you have times when a president gets elected, they have the House and they have the Senate, like Obama did when he was first elected, and Pelosi was the House, the Speaker of the House then too. And that was like a record-breaking do-nothing Congress.
Yeah. I was shocked, because when I saw that, I go, well, as much as I hate it, everything's going to go through. But I was even shocked at what was held up too. So, I mean, it's like, where did we win?
They could have spent the crap out of this country, and and then they did spend, but I mean, for the most part, they were like bickering with each other, and they're their own freaking party. So I don't know, man. I don't really have the answers. This is all so stupid.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just glad that at least we could logically talk about this, respect the fact, and actually tell people who we're voting for. And the chat's been pretty generous too, and I appreciate that we were able to have this discussion and have people who are in our chat bringing up great points.
Yep.
And talking it out. We don't have argument. And see, this is what it should be. This is why I started my channel, and I love having this talk. I mean, we went for 2 hours. I only planned on an hour.
I know,
at
right?
most. So, I mean, I think that it's great that we could come together and have this talk, and have people have the talk in the chat, and talk amongst each other. And I think that if we had more of this, we wouldn't be in the state that we are in currently. My last thing that I want to bring up before we call it quits is and I think this is what started our initial thought for this conversation, was social network, man. What's your final thoughts on that? Because I know that was one of our big reasons for doing this in general, was just all of the bullshit on Twitter. It's just been, God, I mean, I wanted to log off.
I've had to mute so many people from both sides just for being complete morons. I made a post last week, or maybe the week before, I was like, man, the best thing for everybody right now is just to disconnect from social media until the election is over, because things are going to just get more and more toxic than normal. Every day we get closer to the election, and until we as a nation can have conversations like this again on a grand scale, we're just going to completely have this conflict. And see, the government, all of the government, it doesn't matter if you're right or left, they intentionally do things to try to divide us, because they know that once we all start talking on a grand scale, we're gonna be pretty quick to sniff out their bullshit, and then we're gonna start coming for them directly. and they don't.
Oh yeah, I agree. Just to add on to your point there, like there is definitely on both sides fanning the flames intentionally because a lot of it is I think they want people to vote out of emotion and not common sense. They want you to be angry at either respective side
Mhm.
and vote that way, and whoever can make the most outlandish thing stick, either on the right or on the left, or bringing up a point for the right or for the left, they feel like, oh yeah, we got like a million Twitter people who are clearly upset about this, so we're just gonna spam this story,
Yeah.
and then you have the opposite side doing the same exact thing. So yeah, it's a different kind of manipulation of a mass majority, and the people who aren't intelligent, like us or these fine folks watching, or anyone who will watch, they're going to fall right into this. I've heard so many people quoting wrong facts and stats that they've heard
I,
just on one source of news, and they're like, "Oh, but this is it. I'm like, "Okay, source that.
they
Who made this
regurgitate
poll?
whoever they listen to and watch. Verbatim.
Exactly. Who made this poll? Have you checked other ones? Have you compared? Is this a polling site? What questions are they asking? And do you know what the poll is asking? They could be asking, is it raining outside? We don't fucking know.
And you can't. I mean, you can't trust polls. You just can't. I mean, if you could trust polls, then Hillary Clinton would be president right now. I mean, truthfully, she would. All the polls leading up to the last election had her winning by such a wide margin, and it was completely the opposite. I mean, Donald Trump won by a freaking landslide. Everyone was shocked. I remember watching the returns live, and the reporters or the journalists, or if you want to call them journalists, they were all getting flustered. They're like, Trump won this state, and oh crap, he won this state, and let me recalculate my math just to make sure that I'm not.
Oh God, yeah. I was having a ball with that. I was like, it was like a collective funeral.
Yep. Yeah,
But
but also on the flip side, I remember watching Fox News during the election for Obama's second term, and Karl Rove was he got so flustered when things started swinging for Obama. He was like literally redoing his math live on TV. and, it, and I was like,
yeah,
oh,
I remember that.
you're an idiot.
But oh man, I think yeah, my device is gonna die. Anyways, yeah, so I'm gonna wrap this up rather quickly. But yeah, the long story short, we can have these debates and these discussions if you want to, but be civil, and don't fall into the Twitter mob mentality. I hate using that because the other side of entertainment uses that on us, but
Yeah.
there is something to be said, and this is the definition. Like, don't to quote what you were saying, because I think it was the best from going back. Don't take our word for it or our position just because you agree with what you hear. Go check it out for yourself.
Yep.
Think independently. Do your research. And then if you really want to vote that way, if that's how you feel and you just like what the person is saying, then vote for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna bash you in the comments or whatever. Just don't name call and regurgitate stuff and call it facts, and you haven't checked anything out and you want to debate about it, because that's just ridiculous. Just state your case, stick by your guns, don't let the media sway you, and be a free and independent thinker. I guess is the gist of this. Be an independent thinker when you're dealing with this. Think logically, use your head, and then if you, in your mind, all the facts add up and this is the person you want, then stick with it. And don't be bullied by other people. Don't let other people make you feel bad for making your choice. Own it.
Absolutely. And most of all, just always keep this somewhere in the back of your mind that at the end of the day, when you can look past all of this bullshit that's going on, you have to know, truly, when it comes down to it, it is honestly always going to be us, the American people, against them, the establishment. That's it.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm down to 10%. So I'm gonna wrap this up really quickly. Sean, do you have anything you want to promote on your channel?
I mean, if you guys like pop culture, and you just want to, have a good time, come on over to Shuan Stackhouse Reacts. I'm not a political channel. I don't usually talk politics, but I felt under the circumstances, this was a conversation that needed to be put out on, onto YouTube, because God knows no one else is really talking like this.
Oh, yes, and I appreciate having you on, and of course, you've been on General Zod's Fandom Zone. I appreciate having Shuan Stackhouse. We will probably do a maybe a DC discussion, which I think would be epic to have.
That'd be awesome.
And I will charge my device before having that. Jesus, technology. But yeah, I appreciate having you on, sir. Thank you so much for the conversation. It was very pleasant. It was definitely a good back and forth, and I really commend you for wanting to spread a message of talking things out and getting it out here, because I think we are one of the few who even want to touch politics right now. So I really appreciate having you on, sir.
Absolutely. This is the definition of true patriotism.
Oh man, like I feel like I need to go out on that. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't say anything stronger than that. So everybody, thank you very much. Thank you, beautiful people in the chat. We will see you later. And remember, as always, the one and only rule here in the Fandom Zone: kneel before General Zod.